Are you a business owner looking for real advice and input? You're in the right place. From concept to launch to growth, funding, and beyond. Welcome to Startup Hustle with your hosts. One once sold a business for $150 million. The other, the author of $1 Million Bedroom. Here are your hosts of Startup Hustle, Matt DeCoursey and Matt Watson.
1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. 'Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it.
And we're back. Another episode of Startup Hustle. Matt DeCoursey here with Lisa Tamayo, who will be sitting in for Matt Watson today.
Hey.
Hi, Lisa.
How are you doing?
You know, I'm excellent and improving, as I like to say, which is also a good
That's
way to.
always good.
It's a good way to test to see if people are actually paying attention.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you'll say that to people and they'll go, "Oh, that's okay." You know, like they don't know what to say. And you're like, "Oh, so you really weren't listening?" And
Yeah.
well, I'm going to go ahead and do a little heavy lifting here, and then I'm
Okay.
going to tell the world who you are. First off, today's
good.
episode of Startup Hustle is brought to you by Fullscale.io. We help you build development teams quickly and affordably. Now, with me today is Lisa Tamayo, who's the CEO and co-founder of Scollar. And when I say Scollar, I'm not necessarily referring to being educated, am I?
Well, I mean, there's a play on words there. We
Yeah.
did that very intentionally because it's spelled differently. It's smart collar,
Right.
but an animal that's wearing our device is a smart
I like
dog
it.
or cat, right? So they're a scholar.
You know what I think would be smart is if our listeners would open up a browser or on their phone, go to Scollar, scholar.com,
Yep.
so they can see what we're talking about while we're doing it.
Awesome. Yeah.
Totally interactive, right?
Yes.
I'm sure that the world of the internet just flooded your website with visits just
I
right
sure
now.
hope so.
Good work, people. Good work.
Thank you.
You can also go to @ScholarTales on the gram, and they're all over the other social medias, so go check it out. So back to what we're here to do and talk about the Startup Hustle. Let's get the back. What's the origin story with Scollar? Like, how do you get into building animal IoT devices?
Yeah. Accidentally.
Common.
Yeah. And it's kind of it's a sickness. Entrepreneurs and I am a dyed-in-the-wool serial entrepreneur. This is company number 5.
Congratulations, and
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and
that is
also
so true.
extend that apology to those that live in and around your life.
Yeah, yes.
the struggle is real, people.
So
Yeah.
true. So I've been building companies with my husband for over 20 years, and I had finally extracted him from Autodesk. They purchased our first technology in 2008, and he worked with Autodesk helping to integrate that for a long, long time. And I finally said, get out of there. Let's do something else. Let's start another company. And we were trying to figure out what we wanted to do. And we realized that we were struggling with our animals. Why is the dog jumping on the fence again? There's an invisible fence. Oh, it's because the battery's dead and we don't know. Why are there so many collars? Why are we struggling so much to know if the animals are fed? Why are they scratching all the time? And it's just because there's this ripe opportunity to create a system that captures all of that in one device. And we went, oh, that's fantastic. Then we did that thing that all entrepreneurs do. We said, how hard could that be?
Yeah, this will only take a few months.
Yeah. And only $100,000. Yeah. And that's, of course, a lie. It was a bald-faced lie. It's taken us 4 years and a whole lot more than that.
Once again, common. So you mentioned kind of entrepreneurship being a
Yeah.
bit of a sickness.
Mhm.
I mean, it really is. You know, it's now the term serial entrepreneur, I think, is overused by many.
Mhm.
But yeah, it is a bit of a sickness. It's something like that term, a glutton for punishment.
Mhm.
Keep signing up for it. Now, when exactly was that timeline you just described? Like when did Scollar become a real thing?
We started conceiving Scollar in 2015, kind of midway through that year. The collar that you will see on the website now is completely different than the original collar we conceived. We did that thing that most entrepreneurs do, and we paid the dumb tax, which means that we had conceived a specific form factor for it and then put it in the hands of people, and it didn't work. Like, it started coming apart. It was an overmold. And so we went to CES. We were in Eureka Park. So over the course of a few days, thousands of people played with that collar. And day 2, it started coming apart. And so we were like, we just wasted $100,000 on this. So we had to go back to the drawing board and start over. And it's just, it's been stuff like that along the way that slowed us down. But we also have several hundred customers, pre-order customers that have taken the journey with us, and they want a collar that they're absolutely in love with. And so I just tell them, look, stay with us, because we're getting closer and closer to giving you the collar you want, the collar I want. Do you have pets? Yeah.
I had pets until they started biting my children.
Oh.
Yeah, we had 2 French bulldogs prior to having. I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Oh no, yeah.
But those dogs,
no
they were our babies,
mm-hmm.
and then they didn't like the babies when the babies came. So now they live with a friend. Uh-huh. But yeah, I get it. The struggle is real on that. I've had pets my whole life. We have a cat. A cat's really low maintenance. I don't have to track it around a lot. But I did once have a dog that would get out occasionally, and it was just
a runner?
I wouldn't say a runner, but a wanderer. And he would just kind of cruise around.
Visiting.
I mean, and when that would happen, it was like, oh man, all right. So. It's super nice dog, but it was a pit bull chow mix. So like, here's the thing. The reality is him he would have trotted up to you and like licked your hand and your arm or like jumped on you. But that's terrifying for people too. It's also terrifying for me because I never knew how long it was going to take for me to find the dude.
Right.
So with that, and that was 10 years ago, the stuff like this didn't exist.
It's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. And in the 4 years that we've been working on Scollar, it has come from like this idea, because there was one company that came out early on and kind of took the market. And since then, there's been just this wealth of technology, feeders and doors and trackers and activity monitors and monitoring for health and telemedicine, all these things. And it's fantastic. The problem is still exists though, which is that for the pet parent to manage all that, it's a disaster. So we saw that as the opportunity, and that's why we built it as an open platform. So we can partner with anyone and everyone in the industry to make that collar do anything that you need it to do. So whether you're trying to find your pit bull chow mix because he's on he's visiting the neighbors again.
He was just cruising.
Or if he's like suddenly not eating his food and water, we're keeping an eye on that because of the technology. You don't have to get into the vet's office and have them go, so is he eating and having water? And you're like, I think so. The technology is keeping an eye on all of that, and all that's getting pushed up to the cloud so that everyone who's paying attention to any of these different features that you're trying to manage for your animal, the technology is taking care of it for you. So it makes it for me, I view myself as being in the relationship business, making that relationship between my animal and me better.
And also the relationship between your software platform and the rest of the world.
Absolutely.
It was, I'm also the founder of Gigabook. It's a booking platform. You actually used it to schedule a couple things recently.
Yes, I did.
Your appearance on this podcast and also to reserve some tickets and the full scale suite for this upcoming Sweet and Greet event. We're going to get crazy with Post Malone.
I'm super excited.
But, as we started building that, and that was, 6 years ago at this point, we spotted early on the high need for customization with pretty much any software platform, and so many of the things that, and then also integration. Now, as we went to go do that, it was like, I would say it would be like the equivalent of getting out of a hot tub and jumping into a ice bath, because you realize how many things you can connect to, and you're like, wow, like where do we start? And really in the end, that's a limitless number. I really do believe the number of software platforms that you could connect to might be infinite, because by the time, if you ever caught up with it, they're just more, they're coming out every day. So was your original intention with what you designed to be that kind of open platform, or did you figure out the same way I did? You're like, oh, wow, we better open this up in a hurry.
Well, so we devised it as an open platform because that's what we do. Our first company, which was acquired by Autodesk, was also an open platform, because platforms scale bigger and they move industries. Like all of these new things that we take for granted, like Airbnb, Uber, those are all platforms. Salesforce are all platforms. The ability for them to integrate externally is what makes them so powerful. So we knew that we needed to build as an open platform. And it's challenging because a lot of people look at that and culturally, you have to be able to do it as well. It's not just technologically. But what we didn't realize is that the technology we created would be such an enabling technology for many, many types of animals. So we started with dogs and cats because that was our pain point. But now that we're here in Kansas City, we're working with the ranching industry to enable ranchers who are doing production animals to have efficiencies and actually more profit with our technology. We've had people from the horse racing industry reach out to us. We've had people from the camel racing industry. Weird, right? But because we can capture all these things on the platform and we can do what nobody else can do, it just means that we can move the platform wherever we want. We actually call it Powered by Scollar.
Sure.
Because we want to be the engine for the entire animal care industry. And that was the surprise, because it was just like, let's not have multiple collars on our animals. Let's do it as an open platform. Now it's just like, let's be the engine for animal care. That was the surprise.
Sure. And that's, that's like a whole nother challenge. I'm sure we could probably sit here and talk about for an hour in a separate episode. And I think that from an end user perspective, when it comes to building software platforms, especially things that integrate, it's easy to be like, oh, well, why doesn't this connect to everything? And then you start trying to do it and you're like, wow, this is a lot more complex than I hoped it would be. So good luck with all that.
Well, the good news is that a lot of the big corporate players are knocking on our door now. Whereas 3 years ago, nobody understood what we were doing. We were too far ahead. But now we're working with a multinational pharmaceutical company. We're working with 3 telcos. We had an international car company reach out to us because they know that we can integrate with what they're doing for the benefit of the animal. And that's powerful.
Yeah,
and
sure.
so finally we're getting there.
So I want to just talk about this for a second.
Yeah.
This isn't usually the migratory pattern, but you've just moved your business from San Francisco or the Valley to Kansas City.
It's funny to hear how all y'all Kansas Cityans talk about it.
Well, here's the thing is well,
the Valley
first
or
off,
the coasts.
So sometimes people, this isn't just a Kansas City podcast. We're just here in Kansas City. And we've last month we had listeners from all 50 states, and we've had 190 countries participate in Startup Hustle. And thank you, everyone. Thank you for that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Now with that, we consider ourselves we like to take a global approach, but yeah, that's our hometown. We record the show here, and we don't do call-ins yet, stuff like that. But one of the hot topics here and in a lot of the other cities, so Kansas City, let's be realistic. We're like the 25th biggest market. We're not the Valley or New York or Boston or even Austin. Now with that, that presents, in my opinion, a lot of strengths, but the overall perception is that people migrate out of cities here and they move to, San Francisco and some of these other things. Now, some of that's just a population thing. I mean, it's where some certain things are happening, but I have over the last couple of years, regularly there's announcements similar to your company. People are moving back to cities like here now. I feel that the reasons are often related to expense, sometimes opportunity. Now a lot of people don't realize this, but like Kansas City is part of what's often known as the animal health corridor.
That's right. Yeah. And
that might be strategic with you, but what was your, just transparently, like what was the motivation or some of the reasons behind moving?
Yeah. You nailed it. The first one was the fact that this is the animal health corridor. And what I find fascinating is how many people in Kansas City don't realize it. In Kansas City, now this is my new hometown, so I should say, in Kansas City,
welcome.
we have 60% of the animal health companies in the world are located here. So this is the biggest playground for animal health in the world. And that means that the partnership opportunities, and again, we're an open platform, so everything is about collaboration, integration. Everything is here. So it made sense for us to be here. And then you also talked about the expense. San Francisco, I've been there for a long, long time in the San Francisco Bay Area. It's been home for a very long time. I got married there, raised my children there. It is so hard to build a company there now. It's really expensive. They don't do hardware. After we sold our first company, I became an angel investor for a long time, and I knew all those people. And when I went back with Scollar as a hardware, they were like, it's this really great idea. And then like crickets. Oh, okay. So we realized that we needed to find another area to grow the company, but we just didn't know where. And then I presented to the Animal Health Investment Forum a year ago, August, and we're standing in the beautiful convention center. It looks out over downtown. And I said to my colleague, what is this amazing place? This is wonderful. Kansas City wasn't on our radar at all, but it immediately got on our radar. And then we started working with all these different agencies in Kansas City, the state, the corridor folks, and people just took us under the wing and they helped us move the business here.
Are you in Kansas or Missouri?
We're in Missouri, and
Okay.
we have an agreement with the state of Missouri.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of people that aren't from the area don't realize that there's an invisible line
It's weird.
through our hometown,
Yeah.
and it's in 2 different states, which
Mhm.
creates this like weird,
Mhm.
like which side of the state line are you on? And then the states kind of fight with each other about who's going to get who to move across this invisible
Mhm.
line.
Yeah.
And just a fun fact. So the Startup Hustle studio, the office of Stackify and Full Scale is on State Line Road.
Yeah.
And if I walk across that road, I'm in the state of Missouri,
Right.
and but currently I'm in the state of Kansas. So
Well, and
when I drove north
Yeah.
to get here today,
Yeah.
I was in Missouri,
Yeah.
and when I drive south on the way back, I will be in Kansas.
Yeah. And so what we do, because we live in Westport, so we're very close to the state line. So when we take our dog for a walk, we'll literally walk in the middle of State Line Road and be like, I'm in
Yeah.
Kansas, I'm in Missouri,
Yeah.
I'm in Kansas,
It's,
I'm in Missouri.
It's now I grew up also right next to State Line Road, so that's become not as much of a novelty item for me.
Okay,
for
it'll
over
wear
40
off, it'll
years,
wear
it
off.
does quickly, but yeah. So with that that presents a lot of different. I mean, sometimes challenges, opportunities, or different stuff. But I mean, technically, like our businesses are in different states, even though we're a mile away.
It is a
So,
very
yeah.
interesting thing because, as you say, it's very fluid. You can't tell. If you didn't know, you wouldn't
Yeah.
know that you were going across state line. And some of our partners are in Kansas. We just happen to be located in Missouri.
Sure. And that doesn't usually affect anything other than the entity,
Mhm.
meaning like you're going to pay tax or whatever in
Right.
Missouri. But
Right.
we're in Kansas. So
Yeah.
whatever. I grew up in Kansas. I've been kind of used to that. But there's always interesting things that can come up. So, and in regards to, well, first off, welcome.
Thank you.
Kansas City's been an interesting city. I think that it's often underrated
Mhm.
when it comes to a lot of stuff. There's a very robust startup scene here.
Yes. Yes.
And
Very passionate.
in my opinion, that really kicked off when Google Fiber decided to make Kansas City the first place that they were going to do gigabit internet.
And when was that?
It's like 6.5 years ago.
Okay.
Ish.
We
With that, what that did was
Yeah.
that actually it was a validating factor for a lot of things, but it also brought a lot of businesses here that wanted to be ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
You mentioned telemedicine
yeah.
at one point, and maybe that was before we started recording even, but with that, there were things that at the time that gigabit internet gave you access to
Mhm.
test and get involved with that might
Yeah.
not have been available. Now that gigabit speeds all over
Mhm.
now, but at the time that
Yeah.
was interesting.
Well, there's also the other Renaissance, which happened downtown. And we learned about
that's
this.
been a big too.
Yeah, we learned about this when we were still figuring out if we wanted to come. And one of the people that was part of that Renaissance was telling us a story about U2. Have you heard this story? It's
Maybe.
a really great story. So there, the people in the sort of city government are like, yeah, okay, maybe we should do something about Kansas City downtown. And then U2 called and said, hey, we want to film a music video here. And so they're like, oh, actually, we're doing great. We're doing great. We just need to keep doing what we're doing. So they come, U2 comes and so the city's like, what do you need us to do? Do you need permits? Do you need you need us to close streets off? They're like, nope, we're good. So they film the video and they leave, and then the video gets released and it's a zombie apocalypse video. It's literally all of downtown Kansas City is dead. There's no cars, there's no people.
Man.
And so they saw that video and they went, oh, I guess we need to do something about this. And so now we spend a lot of time down in Crossroads, Power and Light, downtown. In fact, one of our co-founders lives downtown because she loves that. It's so vibrant. And on New Year's Eve, we Ubered down there, and then we did all these speakeasies and walked around everywhere. It was fantastic. I love the scene and the vibe down there. It's wonderful.
That's changed over time. So growing up, and I grew up in the south suburbs in Leawood,
Mhm.
not close to downtown at all. But downtown, when I grew up, was not somewhere that was really that attractive or desirable. A lot of that changed when they built the Sprint Center and what is known as the Power and Light District. So the Sprint Center, that's actually where Full Scale does our Sweet and Greet events, and that's like your local arena. I mean, that's where the big concert acts come and stuff like that. And that created kind of an anchor store of
Right.
sorts. And then a lot of other cultural things sprung up or grew quickly around that. A lot of people, it really the rebirth of the urban scene. Unlike San Francisco and Kansas City, we have lots of space.
Oh yeah.
We're not as stacked up on top of each other. So with that, the city's very spread out.
Yeah.
And that's something I think our city's really proud of and it's fun. It's fun. It's nice down there. And I think that the same reaction. So there's an event that the local organization called Back to KC hosts, and you probably went to it last year, maybe, I don't know, but they try to they invite people that were once in Kansas City to come back and see what's up, and it's really an awareness raising event. And we were one of we sponsored it a bit. We actually hosted an event at the Sprint Center for some of those participants, and same reaction we get from a lot of people, like, wow, it's either like, wow, this has really changed, this has come up, or this was not what I was expecting, this is cool.
Yeah. And it was interesting when we told our family and friends that we were moving to Kansas City, they went, I'm sorry, where?
Yeah. They're like, what? What? Are you becoming a farmer?
No. And that, so we had to educate them about the arts and the culture that's here, and the music and the distilleries. And like the other night, we went out with a new friend of ours to a symphonic concert at Kauffman Center, which is gorgeous, by the way. And then we went to Record Bar to listen to jazz and rhythm and blues.
It's a cool venue.
It's just amazing. There's so much happening here. And for us, as we grow the company, we want to attract people here to come here. Like, I absolutely love being in Kansas City. And like I said, I lived in San Francisco for a decade. I was in, we still have a home in Sonoma County, an hour north. We've been there for 20 years. So there's some things too that and whether it's Kansas City or other cities. Well, first off, you're operating at a much lower expense rate. Oh my God, it's incredible.
Not only on a personal level, but at a business level.
Sure.
And then, so I've grown up spending time in and around Texas, and Austin is always people like, oh, it's so cool. Like Kansas City and Austin have the exact same attributes. Maybe we don't have an Apple headquarters coming here, but that cultural thing, you're talking about lots of venues, music, food, areas that are cultural centers and stuff like that. Yeah. And you can have a lot of fun in cities like that and attract a lot of people. Because here's the thing is, when I talk to people that live on, quote, the coasts, it takes them about 5 minutes for them to be like, dude, it's so expensive here.
Oh yeah.
I got to buy a house and it's like $4 million.
Oh,
and I'm like, how big is that? And they're like 2,000 square feet. I'm like,
2 bedrooms.
Is it on the moon?
Yeah.
Well, that's another thing. I've got to do this. I'm like, wow.
The other really great surprise of being here is everything's 20 minutes away. Yeah. So in the Bay Area,
if you ask my wife, everything is actually 20 minutes away, even when it's not. So we're often late because of that assumption. So sometimes.
Sometimes it's 22. However, in the Bay Area, if you want to go any place, it's at least an hour, and then you hit all that traffic. It adds, another 45 minutes. So it's just, it's a disaster. So it's a delight for us. And then rush hour traffic here. What a great thing.
Well, it doesn't really exist. And I go through that a lot. So, I go all over the place for a lot of different things. We just did some podcast episodes. Look up Matt Goes to TechCrunch. And we get out there and I do love those kind of environments, but I also love leaving because I'm like, wow, this is like a pain in the butt, like some of it. But at the same time, it's fun to be around people that are doing innovative and awesome things. And that was a hot topic. So we did some, we're Fullscale's the development partner of Launch KC. And for those of you that are interested, regardless of where you are, go to launchkc.org and apply to be part of their accelerators. They're going to push like 35 companies through that. Lots of fun verticals, but some of their clean tech cohort were San Francisco-based companies. So we also went and talked to them. Yeah. And I did ask them, I said, is it hard to compete for talent here? And they said, it's expensive. It's not necessarily hard. I said, well, okay, explain. They said, because I kind of went under the assumption that everyone just wanted to like work at Facebook or Google or something like that because, they are what they are. And I was actually a little surprised with the responses, but then that became universal. They said, no, it's not hard to attract talent because people don't necessarily want to feel like they're spending their day improving platforms that help people post what they're eating for dinner. Like there's not a whole lot of sense of ownership that comes in that, but with like what they were doing and the clean tech initiatives, that people wanted to be involved in something that they felt mattered. And now with that, they still wanted to be paid accordingly.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so when you were out there, did you have a hard time? What was it like trying to compete in that environment or attract talent?
It's hard to attract talent because people job hop.
Yeah. Sure.
And we were up in the wine country, which is an hour north of San Francisco. So I used to commute into the city several days a week, which gets long and old and boring. But people do like those companies. You know, there's a lot of them there. There's Twitter and Snapchat and Facebook and Apple and Google. Everyone's there, right? Yeah. And we had an intern who ended up going to Apple, and she's still there. She's helping us with a hackathon that we're planning, which I should probably tell you about because that's happening up in April. But it's hard to keep people because it's so expensive there that everyone's always on this kind of upward trajectory. Whereas here, one of the things that I heard, and I'm hoping is true, is that people, they come and they stay. Because I want to like groom the people that are going to become part of the Scollar pack and have them grow with us. Sure. It's hard to keep people in an area. I have
this conversation all day with people that become full scale clients and said, what's the biggest problem? They said, well, I got a massive turnover. So tell me why. They're like, the people just don't stay. And that's been like something that's been because we have minimal turnover at full scale. I don't even know if you know what we do. We just help companies like yours scale a development team faster, make it like turnkey. Yeah. So, we hire expert developers in our office in the Philippines and that allows easier access or maybe more of an ability to get the very best people you can here and kind of dollar cost average that team. Absolutely. It makes sense. It's great for some people, it's not the right fit. I mean, whatever. But yeah, I mean, that is a universal thing that people tell me. And for example, there's like 3,000 open tech jobs in Kansas, and that's in Kansas City. And the thing is that it's that way everywhere. There's like 350,000 nationwide, and filling that gap of talent is tough. So, and that here's the thing is that makes it a seller's market. Sure. So that's contributes to that employee churn. And then also it seems on we'll say once again, the coasts, there's a different expectation for compensation in some regards because everyone, well, what kind of equity do I get? Yeah. Well, we're like 5 months old, so I don't know yet, and just some of those answers are tough for people. Yeah. But it's and perks. Yeah, sure. Perks, lots of perks. Where's the bowling alley? It's down the street. It's a completely different business where they bowl, and we actually work here. We've had fun and interesting conversations about some of that, the work culture, because I've gone. And I won't mention the company, but a few years ago, I was in Times Square. And I was in a very well-known building with some very well-known companies, and I was in one of them talking to the CEO, and he's showing me all the shit that they do. And I was like, when do you guys work? Like that is literally what I said. He kind of laughed. He's like, yeah, I get it. But this is what it takes to be competitive here. Yeah. So who knows? I mean, that's always an interesting balance. So, all right. So once again, go to Scollar, SCOLLAR.com and check out what they're doing. Now, you mentioned you got a hackathon. Let's see if we can let's generate some hype for that. Yeah, what is that, and how can people participate? So we are just in the beginning stages of starting to do the promotion and outreach for it. It's going to be April 3rd and 4th at Linda Hall Science Library. So here locally, here in Kansas City, and it'll be a 24-hour hackathon, and we're looking for college age students and people that are just a couple of years out of college. So it was kind of an accident that this got planned. I was asked by Eric Ward, who's one of the VPs there at Linda Hall Science Library, to present at their second Saturdays. And so I came and I started talking about, value-driven business and millennials and how businesses change and all this sort of stuff. And, he was telling me that they were looking at doing some sort of a hackathon thing, and they had this organization they were going to work with, and it fell through. And I said, we don't need them. Let's make a hackathon, because I've done make-a-thons in California. And so he says, okay. So I started pulling together a team. So we have people from various big corporations as well as internal to Linda Hall Science Library and some people that I know that have now started planning this. So we're super excited. It's the very first one. What were the dates again? April 3rd and 4th. And how does someone sign up for that or inquire about it? Is that on the Scollar website? It's or not on the. It will be on the Linda Hall Science Library website.
But what if people want to know about it? You can send them my way. Just send them to Tamayo@Scollar.com, and I'll tell them how to get involved, because we want hackers in the room, man. We want to see what young people are doing and help them out.
Interesting. I've never been to a hackathon. It's probably because I'm not a developer.
Oh, you know what? You should come to this one. And
Maybe.
the reason that it's so cool is because you have teams of like anywhere from 2 to 5 people. They have 24 hours to take this dumb idea that they've got in their head and actually make it work. So whether it's a hackathon and you're just doing coding, or it's a makeathon and you're actually working with Arduinos and Raspberry Pis and making, something hardware related, to see that process in 24 hours is just the coolest thing ever. So,
yeah, sure.
Yeah, you have to come and check it out.
You just mentioned a couple things that I think that are fun. So we're talking about IoT. We're also talking about the talent shortage per se.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of conversations with people about why that even exists.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of reasons, but in my opinion, the rise of IoT has everything to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily because of your product, but you look at certain things like, all right, so I did some consulting for a 160-year-old drinking fountain maker.
Mm-hmm.
They were trying to figure out how to modernize their business. And here's the thing, drinking fountains, which are like literally the Romans had drinking fountains.
Yeah.
Okay. Like no tech.
Mm-hmm.
And now drinking fountains have software in them, because a lot of them have that little thing that tells you how many bottles of water you saved and stuff like that. And I asked the founder, I said, or the owner, who's like a 4th generation owner, something like that. I said, did you ever think you would have software in a drinking fountain? No.
Yeah.
And now with that, there's so many things that are connected to so much different stuff. And all of that is technically software.
Yeah.
Now with that, a friend, a Startup Hustle alumnus and a local founder here, Davion Ross of Shot Tracker, has the best quote about hardware. He said, Matt, hardware is hard.
I don't think he can take credit for that.
Well, regardless, I mean,
it's
that's
hard.
As far as I know, he is the original person to make that statement here on the show.
Okay, fair. That's fair.
So I always credit him with it. But it's true.
It is excruciatingly hard.
So you mentioned Arduino and Raspberry Pi, and some people know what that is, and some people don't. The cool thing about the modern world is these are things like an Arduino is a programmable something. And like we had a previous guest in here that had used that to create something that triggered something else and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of quote kit kind of stuff out there that you can nerd out on and kind of make your, see if you can do it. Now, once again, years ago, that wasn't as accessible. It wasn't as open. There weren't a lot of things that you could do in that regard. And I think it's really cool that there are things that you can hack together.
And it's important too, because, even a middle schooler can figure out how to use a Raspberry Pi and do something with it. And that's really important because of what you just said about IoT. Everything is moving in that direction. And so the workforce of the future needs to be not only understanding what that is and how it works, but they need to know how to actually make the tech continue to evolve. And they're so 24/7 on. The way that they digest information is so much faster than generations behind us did. They're just so much more sophisticated. They multitask. I mean, think about the fact my kids would be on their phone, be doing homework on their computer and watching TV at the same time and tracking all of it. So there's just this whole different way that we interface with this kind of technology. So the young people that are going to be growing up into these jobs that I'm creating tomorrow need to understand this. And so making it accessible was brilliant.
And I think that for future founders too, if you look back 20 years ago for something like what an Arduino or a Raspberry Pi does, you might have had to have someone go build that for you. Or it just wasn't open and available and stuff like that. So theoretically, for a couple $100, you can try to piece together something and just see if what it requires.
You can play.
And not only for and that's, so I mentioned I'm an old dad at 44. I've got a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Oh, excellent.
And I'm not a developer. People ask me all the time if I am. Now, the other Matt is. I tell people I write checks, not code. which is
Lucky
also
you.
an important part of the
That's
process.
very important.
But it's never really been my thing. I employ hundreds of developers at this
Yep.
point, but with that, I'm making sure my kids have some basic understanding.
Sure.
I don't know if I need them to be software developers, but I want them
Sure.
to at a very early age, we're starting to tinker with things.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a photograph of my youngest daughter who's now 21, and she had a headset on similar to what I'm wearing today, except it had the little boom on it, right?
Yeah.
And she's kneeling in front of our desk at the computer. She's playing a computer game. She's 2 years old. So they grew up with that. I mean, first, we're dorks, so we've been doing software for 20 odd years. So they grew up around it, but they're so conversant in it. They're so comfortable with it. And the other thing that's really important about that is like the fact that Scollar is an open platform. All of that kind of working, the way we work and live now has changed. And the millennial and Gen Z generations totally embrace that, and they're pushing it. They're accelerating that kind of metamorphosis of society as a result of all these IoT things. And I'm right in the midst of that, and I love it. Like when my kids were teenagers, our house was the house. So I got to, like, all the teenagers would come over, and I got to meet all of them and watch them grow up and see how they interact with society and technology and all that. So I have an understanding of it, and it's really interesting.
I think that's important. So my daughter, Dylan, who just turned 5, wanted to start a lemonade stand. And she's got that. She has got the entrepreneur gene.
Awesome.
And it's amazing. She's an amazing salesperson at 5. She knows how to handle objections and stuff like that. And
I feel sorry for you when she hits 14.
Hey, you know what? I'll tell you, I've talked so much about sales, and I consider myself to be a top salesperson. So much of that revolves around your ability to just ask.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've bought things because I was just so happy that a salesperson actually asked me to buy something.
Will you do this?
They're like, do you want to go ahead and get this? I'm like, sure.
Yeah.
I'm just so shocked when they ask. I'm like, God, that's like the most basic element. But I actually took her to the Innovate Her demo night because she wanted to start a lemonade stand. And I said, but Dylan, you don't know anything about business.
Mm-hmm.
You got to learn. So I took her there to be around the other female entrepreneurs, which was really fun because after she wanted to give a presentation, and I said, you're not ready for that yet, but did she learn something? It was really funny. She made herself a name tag and then went and raised $7 for her lemonade stand. She's like, what do I need to do? I'm like, well, you need money for your lemonade stand. She goes, well, what do I need? I said, there's a room full of people. Go ask. And she was gone. Like she turned into vapor, like right in front of me, and came back with some money. And I was like, whoa. And
it's
so
the apple in the tree thing.
We're up to like $17 and change. And she's like,
that's a good start. That'll get you going.
But with that, I think it's important as not only as parents, but also, and I say this, I'm like going to totally sound old here, but when I was young, I had a lot of people that kind of, I don't want to say took me under their wing, but they actually took time to just kind of take an interest in what I was doing.
Yeah.
And
you have to pay that forward.
And I do. And that's what I'm saying is, well, first off, back to that asking thing, go find the people that are doing what you want to do, even if it's not in the industry that you want to do it in, and ask them if you can just I'm not a big fan of the coffee invite. I don't like being asked to get up and go somewhere else to come deliver information. So I always recommend, I'm like, ask me, say, can I come by your office and just, and ask you a few questions or do something, make it convenient for that person. But you'll be surprised. Some people won't reply and some people will be cool about it.
It's absolutely
true. Pay it forward is important.
The ask part is a craft. It's a skill because when I first started trying to raise money for Scollar externally, because John and I put our own funds in and kept it in stealth for a while. And when we had to go out and start asking other people for money, that was hard for me.
Yeah.
Partly because I had this bias, like, oh, I'm a woman CEO, which is baloney. 2 years on, I have learned that the ask is a share. Like, I'm not saying to you, hey, I need you to give me your money. I want to share this opportunity with you. You're going to want to get involved in this, and here's why. And I had to learn that. And one of my favorite authors wrote a book called Pitch Anything. His name is Oren Klaff. Have you read this book?
I haven't.
If you, I'll send you the information later. But Oren Klaff, Klaff, for all of our listeners out there, Pitch Anything. This book completely turned my whole world upside down because it enabled me to put myself in that framing. When I walk into a room and talk to an investor, they need me. They need me more than I need them.
They won't admit that to you
No,
right
of
away
course
either,
not.
people.
Of course
So,
not.
so let me ask you a
Yeah.
question. All right. So all of this stuff for my personality
Mhm.
type, like natural. Like
Mhm.
I don't have a hard time with it. It doesn't make me nervous. I don't freak out about it. It's like very intuitive. Were you like that, or did you have to teach yourself to
I had
be?
to teach myself.
It's hard,
So
right?
I'm strategy, I'm finance, I'm connection with the customer. I had to get over the fact that I had to stop viewing myself as a female CEO and just like, look, the buck stops on my desk. I got
By the
to
way,
fix it.
thank you for that, because I look at
Yeah.
when I sit across from Lisa, I'm like, you're an entrepreneur, like,
Yeah.
and I don't like the labels.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
now I get chewed on a little bit for that.
Me too.
I do. I get
But I
chewed on
don't
a
care.
little bit. Well, I
Yeah.
don't either.
Yeah.
I don't either, because I mean, well, first off, by the way, 23% of our developers are female.
Yes.
Which is way high.
Love it.
Compared to the industry
Love it.
averages. They're really
Yeah.
good at what they
Yeah.
do.
Yes. And why not? Of course they
I could
are.
care less if they are women or men. And then the same thing goes. Now, I understand some people are like that, and I'm not trying to downplay the situation. But that said, looking at yourself, you're discounting yourself. As when you say, well, I'm going to this or that or that, go in there and don't.
Why do we do that?
Don't give a shit.
Yeah.
And also, like you mentioned, is I think a lot of people, when it comes to fundraising or any of these things, even general selling, they're like, you explain the benefits that everyone receives, and it makes the whole process that much easier.
Yeah.
Like, this is how you can benefit. This is what we're going to do, blah, 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 blah. And don't be afraid to say, is this something you're interested in participating in?
And I don't even phrase it like that, Matt, to be perfectly honest with you. I say, you're going to be interested in this. Let's go. Because
I'm giving the intermediate approach.
Yeah, if you leave a question on the table, you offer them the opportunity to say no. And this is all learned.
Yep.
Because it didn't come naturally for me. Now that I'm in this place, now that we have partners and we have some growth, I just want to bring everyone along. You know, if I'm going to work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, it's to make that relationship with animals better. I love it so much. I just want people to come along with us. And that took a little while to learn. And
you're operating in the advanced version of that, which I often refer to as assumptive selling. That I'm just assuming that you're coming along.
Of course you are.
Yeah. So now with that, if you're afraid and that's hard for you, well, either you can just jump and then build wings and go straight. You can go straight to that.
Yeah.
I don't know about afraid. I don't get afraid. Because I'll just keep asking.
I get nervous.
I will move down the line.
Yeah.
Like, and when it comes to sales, there are 2 4-letter words that matter: sold and next. Like, because if you're not getting the first one, say the second one and keep moving down the line. I mean, it's just and I think the hardest part when it comes to selling, fundraising, or just trying to create partnerships is the rejection. But guess what? You're guaranteed to get rejected by a ton of people.
Just settle in.
So I am going to encourage you to just accept that and keep going. Those 2 4-letter words, sold and next.
Well, and the other piece is I have found that the more that I respect the person that I'm reaching out to and understand what their lens is, and that I don't waste their time. Like we spend a lot of time crafting the message, a lot of time crafting how I present, because I'm the front face. So I'm out there presenting Scollar everywhere. And I can tell you that I practice and I practice and I practice and I practice. And like we're getting ready to do some outreach now, and we will beat the crap out of that message until we get it just right with all of the different nuances. So it's worth taking that extra time. I've had entrepreneurs say to me, I don't have time to do that. And I say to them, you don't have time not to do that.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're wasting people's time.
I refer to that as fact shaping. And so there's an infinite number of ways to say anything, which means theoretically there are ways that are way better than others. And I spend a lot of time doing exactly the same. And this is funny because when you envision this, you'll think, man, he looks like a crazy person. I do a lot of that while I'm driving.
Sure.
I will drive. I mean, I just kind of say it out loud, and you say it again and again and again and again and again. I recently wrote a book called The Realist Guide to a Successful Music Career. Although I don't have a career in music like most people. I worked in the music industry for 10 years. With that, I've been able to have access to some of the world's most brilliant and genius musicians. Every single one of them practices more than anybody I've ever met.
Oh, yeah.
They have a high level of aptitude that went with it, but they practice, practice. And one of my favorite people, Jake Sininger, who's a guitarist in a band named Humphreys McGee's, regarded as like a top 20 world guitarist. I said, Jake, every time I see you, you're practicing. He goes, no, I don't practice. He goes, all right, so what are you doing? He goes, well, I'm just playing. I said, well, tell me why. He goes, the closer I stay to that part of that I need to be in my mind, the easier it is for me to insert myself on a high level.
Sure.
And you look at like what a guy like that does. Now he's on stage in front of 5,000 people who are all going to be critical if he misses a note. And he has to turn that on. Like inspiration is a difficult switch to turn on automatically. So by continuing to practice and keep it in the forefront of your thought process, it's just that much more natural when you get there. So like you said, practice.
Yeah. And it becomes easier to execute on it on the fly.
Yeah.
One of
needs
the
to be second nature.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And by the way, that's another thing that I heard from a lot of these high performing musicians. They said the moment I have to think about it is the moment I will actually mess up.
You have to have control over what you're doing, not the other way around. If it has control over you, then you will, when you do mess up, and you will, then you will lose your place. One of the hardest presentations I ever gave was in Toronto. It was at the big Collision conference. I had won the pitch competition and got to present on the main stage where in front of 2,000 people. But I had 3 minutes to talk about Scollar, and you distill
Which
your
doesn't
company.
sound like long, and then you get up there and you're like, wow,
But
I
3
respect
minutes,
how long this is.
Well, I mean, it's also, I literally knew every single word, and every single word was nuanced because I had only 3 minutes to shape that narrative about Scollar in front of 2,000 people. So nothing is left to chance at that point.
See, I'll challenge you a little there. So I take an opposite approach. I can't script my whole presentation. And you've invariably been somewhere where someone chokes the presentation.
Sure.
You can tell it's because they missed a word and now they're going back in their mind all the way through that. Now, that's a requirement for some people. They're not gonna. But that's not hard for me. I will go up there. Well, I use what I call a set list, similar to musician. I'll have like 4 points that I want to make. And that way, if I feel like I've wandered in, I can look at it or keep it in my mind. I'm like, okay, you need to move on to this one, to this one, to this one. And then, but timed presentations are kind of tough.
That one was tough. I mean, normally when I do a presentation anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes, I know the presentation, just like you, I know it so well. I can get back on path really quickly. This one was very different. And I knew it, I could move the slides around in different orders and speak to them. So I knew I had control of it. So if something went awry, I could quickly, grab where I needed to go. Now, the funny thing was I'm on stage and I was in jeans, which I never do. I generally wear a suit if I'm presenting, but my co-founder said, get up there. This is, all tech people, get up there in your jeans and jacket. And I had my Scollar t-shirt on. And I'm walking across stage in my sneakers, right? And I'm like doing the whole thing. And then I trip.
Oh, wow.
And then so I was like, you can't stop. You're in the middle of 2,000 people. So I did this little ba-doop-doop and I smiled and kept going. You have to do that. You have to be so comfortable that no matter what happens, you can get back on course.
This sounds weird, might sound weird to some people. So it was probably about 5 years ago. I legitimately just quit caring. What other people thought. Yeah. And I mean that in like the most respectful, humble way. Not like I'm like, here's the finger. I don't care what you think. It was like, I really just kind of quit listening to noise that was critical for like, take it in, crunch it up. Maybe it's valid. If you hear it a lot, it might be something you need to look at, but the one-off stuff, like who cares? And it really changed my, I just, I wasn't really in the end, I was just trying to let go of like, you can sometimes take a negative comment or situation like tripping on stage. Like you can beat yourself up about that. If you haven't invented a time machine, you're not going to go fix it.
No.
Look back at it, laugh. Yeah. Did you fall down?
Even in the moment? No, it was just like a little, it was just like a little
toe catch. Yeah.
And I just kept going. But
on some levels that may have made that a better presentation.
Well, I smiled at that. at that moment.
You want to know why?
Yeah.
I bet all those people remembered you. So, and I don't have them on today. It's kind of funny. I usually wear gold shoes. You may have seen me.
I saw your shoes. They're a beautiful green or orange today. Are they green?
They're like, well, they're yellow.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
Yeah, I'm dressed for.
You're a shoe man.
I am, but I normally wear the gold shoes, especially when I go out to do events, and people. It's kind of become my trademark, and the reason is well, it makes me memorable.
Yeah.
And some the guy with the gold shoe. Oh, that was DeCourcy. And then Watson does the same thing now. And it's kind of become like one of those things too, where we actually give people, like if you work with or around us, you may receive a gold pair of shoes, which is like almost a ceremonial thing at this point. We give, if you do something meaningful or like really impactful, I've given them to all the people that have been in my books. I've written 3 books and just different stuff like that.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, but these little things do, like, there are ways to stand out. You mentioned like, hey, I usually wear a suit. Now I'm wearing jeans. Like,
well, so I want to go back to something you said a minute ago, which is about not caring. And I think that
was more for me than everyone else.
No, but it's true. Having gotten beat the crap out of me in front of investors in the Bay Area and had people say mean things like, this is a niche play. This is stupid. We don't do stuff like this.
There's no upside here.
And taking it, taking it to heart and then realizing that I can never, ever let that stop me. So first of all, when I'm speaking, and I tell the team to do this too, I always want you to frame it positively because that sets the intention, right? And then the other thing is we have to know what we're doing. We just have to race after it. And for me, that moment of not caring came because I have tattoos and I've had them for a long time and they're all very special to me. And the first time that I had short sleeves on in a business meeting and that person across the table saw the tattoo, there's you can't take that back. Like they suddenly have a different perspective of you. They may see you as like the leader, right? The CEO. But the minute they see, oh, she's got tattoos, it's that you're different in their mind. And I had to get over that because I like my tattoos and I don't care whether other people perceive me differently as a result. It's just part of who I am. It makes me more interesting.
I think that dynamic has changed tremendously, especially over like the last 10 years.
They're so beautiful and artistic.
In tech, it's funny because, people have been like, you mentioned a suit. I didn't even own a suit for 3 straight years. And I had to go to a wedding and I actually bought a suit. I had an old one, but it didn't fit.
Did you wear it after that?
I've worn it twice and I have 2 of them because I got the second one for half price and I was like, oh, all right, sure.
Well, that sucker.
It was kind of funny because I probably should have had one because sometimes I had a guest on here, Jason Grill, who's a former politician. And I was going to a lunch with the governor and he said right here on the podcast, he's like, is that what you're wearing? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, you're going to wear jeans to go meet the governor? I'm like, I wear jeans every day.
Yeah, yeah. I got to meet the governor. He was at our welcome event in April and I wore exactly what I'm wearing today, my velvet jeans, my Scollar t-shirt. And then they invited us to the Chiefs Raiders game in Oakland. And I wore a Chiefs t-shirt, full tattoos and full display right there with the governor. It was like, what, this is me. I'm a tech girl. Thank you so much for having me. You're a really nice man. Just be you, show up.
For those of you listening, I want you to go to the Startup Hustle YouTube channel and check us out, see our talking heads. Lisa does not look like someone that you would think had a lot of tattoos. You can also check out our pictures on these at Startup Hustle Podcast Instagram. In the end, I think Popeye said it best. I am who I am.
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
That's back to that not caring thing.
Yeah.
But I think that's also, that's tough to do. Some of that I think came with age and maturity, just like, and some of it too is just like I don't have the thickest, fullest head of hair that I used to. I'm 44, man. I'm like kind of like Al Bundy now. I'm like, I'm married with children.
Right.
And it doesn't mean I want to care. I mean, would I prefer that wasn't the case? Yeah. But I mean, it's like way out of the way to do something about it and would require effort. Okay. So once again, Scollar.com. This has been fun and interesting. I appreciate the jaunt through the presentation and the sales stuff.
Sure.
I think that I talk to too many tech company founders that, they're like, they're always like, I got to raise money. I'm like, you could try to sell something too.
Yeah. So actually,
it's a big part.
On that note, I have an ask.
Please.
Of you and your listeners. So we're a community-based company. It's a collaborative effort because we're a platform, right? And so we collaborate with people. And we are so saddened by all the wildfires in Australia that we created special edition T-shirts and stickers with the Australian flag to raise money for Wires in New South Wales fire rescue. So 100% of the profits go to that. So if you go to the Scollar.com website and go to products, you'll see our T-shirt page. Go pick up a T-shirt, go pick up a sticker. All of those profits go to help all those incredible little koalas that are being burned out of their homes, all of that rainforest, all the areas that are getting beaten up by these fires and now by these devastating floods. We want to help, and we need you to help us help.
Yeah, please check it out. It's crazy.
It's terrible.
So many things.
Yeah. And so we're actually, the reason this is near and dear to our heart is because we're from Sonoma County. Our home base used to be Santa Rosa. And in 2017, we had those horrible wildfires that came through and destroyed a quarter of our city. So wildfires are really near and dear to our heart. So we just want to help.
With that, as we wrap up today's episode, we like to always end with what we call the Founders Freestyle. May have been the preview to yours, but we talked about a lot of different things. Once again, Scollar.com. You created the animal IoT community-based cloud platform. We talked about so many different things. I actually just want to give you a minute to go back, like we always refer to the ADD nature of the Startup Hustle episodes. Yeah. So we decided to put the Founder Freestyle at the end because sometimes it's easy to leave things unresolved. Yeah. What would you like to say to all of the hustlers out there? It could be advice. You can really, it's a freestyle. You can sing the national anthem if you want. We're not going to stop you.
So one of my tattoos is just quite simply the word believe. And if you're going to be that person that envisions something, right? You want to create something, you're going to get beat up. So you need a lot of persistence and a lot of courage, and you need to believe that you can do it. And it's worth it. I get up every morning and I choose to do this. I quite literally left my home and moved to a different state, brought my team here, and we're thrilled to be here because it allows us to, deliver on this promise that we make with Scollar. And if you want to do this, you have to believe in yourself. You have to dig deep. You have to keep going. So, you're going to face the wall. And one of my favorite songs is actually Rihanna's song Sledgehammer. And there have been times when I've felt like a puddle on the floor and I just put that song on and play it loud. And it's basically, I'm a sledgehammer, Bricks, I'm coming for you. You just have to believe that you can do it and keep going. So that would be the thing I would leave people with. Just believe in yourself, keep going. Listen, like you've said, if someone's telling you, several people tell you, you may need to pivot, do it, but believe and keep going.
I have recently had a guest say, believe in what you're doing or leave what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's my follow-up to what you're saying. I think overall, just because the world doesn't see your vision doesn't mean that your vision isn't any good. So much of the stuff we talked about today, it's just reality. I think too many people hear no twice and quit. Or, you got to, there's a lot of starting a business, being a startup founder, doing any of this stuff. It's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy. You're going to have a lot of challenges and you're going to have to learn to do a lot of different things. You're going to have to be very humble with yourself. Like you mentioned earlier, that maybe the sales or presentation stuff wasn't the top priority. And I'll tell you what, you are very composed. I have no doubt that you are a great presenter now, but if that's what it took to, I think at some point you realize, hey, I got to maybe do better at this or feel more confident about it. And so boom. And those kind of things and figuring out, you have two choices there. You can either find someone else to partner with at your company that's really good at the stuff you're not, or you can get to work fixing the things that you need to do. And it requires, humility.
Yeah. And you know what?
And also, like, especially when it comes to speaking, so many people would rather die
Oh,
than speak publicly. So just practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Practice.
Yeah.
And then also there's a mindset thing. Like I have something on my wall that says, change your thoughts and you'll change your world. You know, you could see that no as an obstacle. You can also see it as a learning opportunity and the stepping stone to the next potential yes. And I even see a no as that's a maybe. I'm going to come back to you.
Sure.
Unless it's just absolutely a hard no, don't ever contact me again, which it rarely is. It's like, oh, that's interesting, but not yet. Okay, that's a maybe. I'm going to keep that door open and keep coming back. So it's just reframing how you think about it. You know, it's always an opportunity. If you see everything as an obstacle, you won't go over it. But if you see everything as an opportunity, you will.
Yeah. And then keep in mind the people that tell you no, things change.
Sure.
Things change. I mean, I've
Absolutely.
had a lot of people tell me no, and
then later,
then
yes.
4 months later, out of nowhere, here's an email. Hey, maybe we're considering a different approach or whatever. So, well, anyway, Lisa, once again, thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
For those listening, go to Scollar.com. You can check them out at Scollar Tales. They're all over the internet. For those of you listening, once again, today's episode brought to you by Fullscale.io. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn.
So many places.
Everywhere. Pretty much everywhere but Pinterest. So now I realize what I need to go do.
Missed opportunity.
Yeah. See y'all next time.